All right, everybody, hello and welcome to mock interview number 132, featuring an account development representative, Syed, interviewing at MongoDB. My name is Albert. I'm the founder of Albert's List, and we are here to help you become the most indispensable career professional when it comes to your AI, job search, and side hustle skills. Uh, with me, as always, is Corey of CareerShakers.com, a career consultancy. He's been here with us since the very beginning, which is about 5 years ago during the pandemic, where we do mock interviews. If this is your first or not your first time, here's how we do these. Saeed has identified himself as a volunteer, and he's identified a job at a company that he wants to work at and has provided his resume and a job description. Corey has both and will be asking questions and providing feedback along the way. Those of you in the audience can ask questions too, and we look forward to seeing what you might have to say. All right, Corey, over to you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. And today we're going to be practicing, well, the company MongoDB is calling it a account development representative, but the more common industry term is sales development representative or business development representative. So if you are looking for those types of sales roles, that's how you're going to find it. This company just calls it an ADR, which is why we call that this webinar. Now, you guys are in for a bit of a treat because Saeed actually has existing sales experience. He currently works as a CSM or customer success manager. And he's already doing or has done interviews for an AE role at this company, and then they directed him towards interviewing for this ADR role instead. So sometimes if you guys are interviewing at companies and interviews are going pretty good, but it's just not the right role fit, if the team likes you and the recruiter likes you, then they can actually have you interview for a different position. And that's kind of what's happening with Saeed here. And for those of you who are new to sales or tech sales specifically, these are specific roles more in tech companies, the BDR, AE, and CSM. And I guess before we get started, Saeed, I think it would be awesome for the audience to just get a little bit of context in terms of what are the differences between those roles.
Sure. And can I also share some things that I've learned on the kind of hunt job process recruiting was?
For sure, yeah, I think everyone would really benefit.
Awesome. So first and foremost, thank you guys so much for hosting. And for everyone in the audience, I hope I'm able to help y'all. I learned a lot. There's a lot of people who helped me, so I'm more than happy to return the favor. As far as before I delve into the differences, what I've noticed recently, and particularly for this company, is having a champion. It's kind of funny with I've talked to some people where they ended up like getting the hiring manager to agree with the conversation, and later on they got a re like an automated rejection email when they applied preemptively before the conversation. They saw the conversation and everything, but it just kind of shows you how the market is. So here's a couple of things I've noticed. Finding people who are currently working in the role that you're looking for, getting on a conversation with them and just asking a question on their day to day. In this case, as an SDR, how exactly do you collaborate with account executives? When thinking about quota, how is quota managed? SDRs and tech sales, especially what I've learned is there's a certain degree of prospecting you need to have, but that prospecting has to close into meetings, right? Meetings booked for your AE to close and decision makers that you can connect with. There's a bunch of different methodologies that we're going to be discussing throughout the course of this call. But reaching out to people who are currently in the role, everyone's always willing to help. If you just reach out to them, let them know, like, hey, I'm actively involved in XYZ company and their interview process. Would you mind giving me like a couple minutes of your time? And even when you have an interview, it's really, really nice because, you ask the questions you need to. You ask about the interview process. And finally, the most important thing you ask is if they can put a good word for you with the hiring manager. So that is what we call a champion, people who are going to be advocating for you in front of a manager, and basically coming in and telling them like, you really, really need to hire this person.
Awesome.
And particularly to the differences, I'm sorry you asked, the difference between SDR, ADR, and BDR.
SDR, AE, and CSM.
Okay. So a client success manager focuses on a CSM is a client success manager or a customer success manager. And they focus on maintaining existing business relationships. So when you're thinking about metrics like ARR and MRR, those are really, really critical to a customer success manager. Moreover, thinking about customer net satisfaction. A lot of your client and customer success manager focus on existing accounts and how they can provide the most amount of benefits. Now, an SDR is a person who works with account executives in order to qualify leads. And when you're going about prospecting, it's the SDR that usually has the first point of contact with the client, the customer, the company. And in that course of prospecting, SDR's job is to mainly analyze whether or not that particular company's problem is needed for, the company that SDR is for. So if the SDR if they go about qualifying, right, understanding their customer, understanding what sort of problems they have, putting themselves in the customer's shoes, and then you're going to see that, then they can make a transition to their own company. Like, oh, I see that you have XYZ problem. Our company solves XYZ problem, and this is how we do it. X, Y, and Z. Now, account executives, AEs, are known as closers. These are the ones who connect with your business decision makers and your tech decision makers to close a certain account, essentially to make it happen. So there's a lot of strategy involved, both in collaboration with SDRs and AE. And yeah, I hope that was helpful. I'm more than happy to delve into further details as well.
No, no, that's perfect. So for those of you who are looking to break into tech sales, those are like the three core roles that you're going to want to make sure you are aware of. Even if you're interviewing for one and not the other, they all interact with each other. And so making sure you're able to confidently talk about these and explain your knowledge when you are in these interviews, it is only going to help you. So Saeed today is in a CSM role and he's interviewing for the SDR role. So there's going to be a bit of a shift in focus on the skill set. So CSMs focus a lot on retention and upsell. There's still a component of sales in that role, but there's not so much prospecting or lead generation. So that's where there's going to be a big difference in terms of interview focus and skills that we're going to have to talk about, as well as cold calling as well. So that's a high level overview of kind of what we're going to be focusing on and the difference between the roles. But of course, we also want to say thank you to Saeed for volunteering for your education and entertainment purposes. And we always want to give volunteers a platform. So Saeed, why don't you walk everyone through kind of high level, what kind of jobs you're looking for, what companies, and what locations? And I'll pull up your resume while you do that.
Definitely, I really, really appreciate it. So currently I'm looking to fully transition into tech sales. I fell in love with AI, and I think that we're going to see a lot of technological advancements, especially as most recently, if you point out recent news, so Claude's MCP, that's multimodal context protocol, which allows agents to draw from multiple sources of context, whether that's image, audio, and text. When you think about how messaging is changing because of artificial intelligence, this is kind of where I see myself as a problem solver on the front line of AI. With that being said, I'm more than happy to look into ADR, SDR, or BDR roles. And even for some smaller companies, some startups, I'm looking for AE roles.
And then today you are located in Austin. And so are you open to moving? You just want remote or staying in Austin, hybrid?
So I'm looking for either remote across the United States or on-site and hybrid in Austin.
Awesome. So if anyone has any opportunities or has any connections for him, please reach out and then we'll go ahead and make that connection. And then I can always provide a copy of the resume as well. And then today we are going to be practicing this ADR/SDR role at MongoDB. And the cool thing is he's actually currently interviewing, so we'll also probably get a little sneak peek of the kind of questions that he's been getting asked. So we can do a mixture of practice. We can go over some of the ones you've already been asked, and then we can go over some of my newer ones as well. And then if those of you watching have questions for me or questions for him that you want us to practice, put it in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and practice those. And that way everyone can get the maximum amount of benefit from today's session. All right. So, Sayed, how many interviews have you done for them already for this ADR role?
This would be for the ADR role in particular, this would be the first one.
Oh, cool. All right, sweet. And then that one's
I
already
had the,
scheduled?
I'm sorry?
That one's already scheduled?
Yeah, that one is tomorrow.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you, thank you.
Sweet. Okay, let's start with a let's start with a nice and easy warm-up question. Oh, and by the way, because this is practice, Saeed is totally allowed to look at his notes, to reference documents, to like read off of some stuff. That way we can just test the content, what he'll be talking about in his interview. We're less focused on like the body language and stuff like that. That way he can actually just get feedback on his overall answers. So I'll ask a question, he'll answer, and then I'll give some feedback on things that he did well so that you all can learn from the things that he's doing and then some potential areas of improvement. And again, even if you're not interviewing for this same company, you're going to want to use the same exact like formats and structure of answers whenever you are doing your interviews as well. So no matter what company it is, what role, you can still learn from today's session. Okay.
And even outside of that, in terms of resources, I'm more than happy to share a couple of books that were recommended for
Oh
people
yeah.
into getting into ADR, SDR, BDR, even AE roles. One particular book, and I've had two companies stand by this, Mongo being one and Rubik being another, where I connected with their AEs and ADRs. And there's a book called The Qualified Sales Leader. And a lot of people stand by that as kind of like the sales Bible. So I definitely recommend people reading that book preemptively, jumping into a sales interview. One book that I'm reading right now is called The Challenger Method, that basically tells you how to identify challengers and why it's important for salespeople to challenge the prospects and the clients. And then there's another book by Ryan Reisert. And that's called Outbound Sales No Fluff. So those are some of the books that I would recommend. Sorry about that.
No, perfect. Yeah, I'm going to put that in the chat so everyone can take a look at these on Amazon as well. Perfect. Thank you. This webinar is full of knowledge today, so this is excellent. Okay, so can you tell me about your sales background?
Sure. So I started my career in sales at Cadillac. And at Cadillac, it was an interesting time. This was during COVID. I was also the youngest new car sales consultant on the floor, which meant I didn't have a book of business. So my expectation was to make 150 touch points every single day. 50 texts, 50 calls, and 50 messages.
Hmm.
And then from there, I delved into currently where I'm a client success manager at Brilliant House. Prior to that, I was at Cognizant managing AI partnerships for Google. During the time of the Transformer Revolution, Microsoft had invested roughly around $10 billion dollars into ChatGPT. And one of the programs that Google was perpetuating, this just to see like whether or not they wanted to build or buy. And I learned a lot in terms of what differentiates an AI company from a non-AI company. And then more specifically, as kind of AI advanced, I learned a lot about RAG, semantic search, how to optimize LLMs to give you the best results. So these are some of the things that I learned.
Okay, all right. And then so you did point out that your very first sales job ever was working on the floor at Cadillac. You talked to me about your daily touch points. Obviously, you're probably very familiar with like cold calls and outreach. Talk to me a little bit about your metrics while you were there for a year.
Sure. So above the daily touch points, what we were measured on were the number of response rates and how often we were able to upsell specific customers, talk about the premium packages. With car sales, it's different from your traditional tech sales. With car sales, salespeople would typically get the percentage of expansions as well as a little bit of commission on cars. So some of the metrics that they saw were the amount of cars that were sold, the amount of customers that were reached out to, how many customers that were reached out to that converted into a close, and what were some of the things that prevented customers from closing.
And then what were your specific metrics and results?
So, year over year, I guess during my time at Cadillac, I sold more Escalades, which are top of the line. I hit I hit and I exceeded quota, which was 4 cars a month. I was hitting roughly like 10 or 15 cars per month. And that was because of the by the book processes, the 150 daily touch points, cold calling, understanding kind of objections and the different things that would bring about that. Those are some of the things that I had done.
Fantastic. So if you were crushing it over there, selling more than 6 Cadillacs a month, why would you want to leave?
I made a transition into business school, and that was the biggest kind of transition for me. So I started my master's program, and I had to leave so I can learn more about technology, learn more about product, and also learn what it means to be an entrepreneur for the program.
Cool. And then I see here at Cognizant, your job title was business development lead. So that's to me reads like a sales position. Is that right? So were you in charge of managing certain accounts for Cognizant?
It is kind of sales, but mainly like it serves as a go-to-market and evaluation perspective. So I had 31 different startups that I was looking over for Google. And it was my responsibility to kind of designate whether or not these startups were something that needed to be partnered with Google.
Okay. And then what does that mean exactly?
So Google was looking at its next unicorn under the Google Cloud Platform, and it was my responsibility to kind of look into the new nuances of these startups, understand the product demos, connect with founders, understand the data behind kind of the technology, and see how that data correlates with these companies becoming partnered with Google. It was a two-sided approach. So these companies were looking to have Google as an incubator. Google was looking for its next AI forward company. And a lot of the data analysis was conducted over product demos, customer testimonials, understanding the data sets of these particular companies, whether they were machine learning focused or whether they were GPT wrapped or whether they were AI centric and what sort of help and development they needed to get to the point they wanted to get to.
Okay. Awesome. So we will move to the feedback portion here. Okay. So for any type of like walk me through your resume, why should we hire you? Tell me about yourself, especially whenever you are doing, and in his case, it's a small career switches, I guess what we'll call it. He's still within the sales vertical, so it's not that big of a career switch. But usually people will just ask you, right? Like, tell me about your sales experience in this case, or if you're switching into finance, tell me what your finance experience is. And so it's actually great when they prompt you that way because then you can pick and choose what you want to highlight from each of your different jobs. Depending on how you've presented your experience in your resume, of course, but you can pick and choose the jobs and skills and experiences or projects that you've done that basically shows them that you have the transferable skills in order to succeed in this type of position. So for an SDR, we know that we need to talk about lead qualification, cold calling, and lead generation. Uh, Usually, yeah, and then like certain sales techniques, and then obviously like exceeding quota would be great. So if you could talk about any of those things, that would firstly set you up for success. So Saeed did a very good job of pointing out that he actually started his career in sales at Cadillac. And then make sure you do, instead of having me prompt you, right? Like you obviously crushed it there. So I would just focus on that from the beginning. So talk about how you started your career in sales. You very comfortable doing cold calls. You had to do 150 daily outreach to customers, through phone call, email, text, etc. You exceeded your sales quota every single month. You sold the top of the line Cadillacs. Most sales consultants there sold 4 month. You were selling six, so over 150% of the normal quota, right? If you lead with that, that's so much stronger than just saying I worked at Cadillac. right?
Mhm.
So lead with the numbers, especially when you're crushing it. And then you then talked very actually you didn't really talk that much about your CSM role today, which probably has the most transferable experience after Cadillac. So
Mhm.
make sure you are talking more about what you've done in this role, working with accounts. Maybe you've helped to do some upsells, right? Because upsell is sales, right?
Right.
So you can also highlight how you've done some of that. Obviously, give me some of your metrics and numbers there. And then you chose to highlight your experience at Cognizant, which makes sense because on your resume it's listed as business development lead. So this is actually great for like ATS optimization because as a recruiter, I would have interpreted this as you had a sales or customer facing role at Cognizant, right? But after you explained it to me, it's not so much of a sales position, right? It's more about like due diligence and analysis. So maybe when you are if they give you the option to kind of walk them through your experience, maybe don't focus so much on this one, right? And focus more on your current role at Brilliant House because that has the most overlap with what you're trying to do, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. So two critical points, and I think this is where a lot of like confusion happens, right? Tell me about yourself or walk me through your specific experience. I do like making it metrics driven. I think I should have started that. Um, so metrics driven, making sure that I'm spitting numbers, maybe even talking about my health cloud experience. I personally called, 700 people, had 700 interviews. Now, it wasn't necessarily a cold call, but that aspect of communication and building a relationship, I think I could have potentially elaborated on that as well. And then maybe not delving into Cognizant, but yeah, talking about my experience as a, CSM, how I've managed expansion opportunities with the 5 existing accounts, focusing on the rate of net satisfaction, which is like 100%, and then that particular like retention aspect, but also the ARR and MRR that I was potentially overseeing.
Yep, exactly. Okay. And then let me check the chat, make sure that no one's asking any questions here. Because again, don't be shy, everybody. If you want questions for us to practice, throw that in there. Okay. Let's start. Let's go to one of my sales focused questions. Um, So imagine we did hire you here as a ADR at Mongo. How would you build new pipeline for your respective territory?
That's a wonderful question. So, because Mongo is known as a NoSQL database company, and when thinking about relational databases, there's a couple of triggers that I would focus on. One is recent AI and storage advancements. So, companies that are in the news or have gotten recently funded, or maybe are building a product that requires a lot of AI and data storage. That would be a great aspect for Mongo to potentially come in. And what I would do in particular to that is find who led that particular advancement, who led the R&D for that, who developed that particular product. So reaching out to the software engineers, the solution architects. Now, that would be the first aspect. The second thing is looking over recent job postings and seeing which company is actively hiring a NoSQL developer. If they're hiring a NoSQL developer, that means there's a lot of NoSQL product differentiation. And those would be the two main drivers that I would think about in terms of building my pipeline from scratch.
Excellent. Now, what are some of the tools that you would use? And you can assume that here at Mongo we have, unlimited resources.
So there's a couple of tools that I would use to prospect. The first being LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I think LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a wonderful kind of platform that connects any and all aspects of people working in a organization level of a company. Second, you have Apollo, HubSpot, ClickUp. These are all CRM tools that are fantastic. The other outreach tool that I would use is a tool called Hunter.io. Hunter.io is a particular tool that finds direct company emails. And I think these are all wonderful tools that would help in my cold calling, prospecting, and also cold emailing.
Great. Now, we also would work closely with our marketing and events team, right? So, thinking about that aspect, what are some potential either current or historical events that maybe Mongo has already done that you would want to go ahead and revisit? How would you leverage that as a part of building your pipeline strategy?
So Mongo recently acquired Voyage AI. And that acquisition, finding the key players behind that acquisition, that would be a great kind of first start. Because Mongo it has such a seated partnerships and established set of customer testimonials, that would be a great way to reach into existing accounts to see if they have any new product developments that would be intertwined with Mongo.
And then what about working with our marketing and events team?
To clarify, working with the marketing and events team to drive additional sales, or am I thinking about building relationships?
Lead generation.
Oh, right. So, marketing and events, it has plenty of uh, new prospects coming in as well as existing prospects. So as a sales rep working closely with marketing events to see like who has come to recent events, demonstrated interest, and then understanding what their pain points and their challenges would be. That would be a wonderful, wonderful kind of bridge between marketing, events, and sales.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right. So you can obviously see that Saeed's done a lot of research. If you guys are not familiar with the tools that he listed off, Hunter.io, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? Obviously like Salesforce, etc., HubSpot, those are like your core tools that every tech salesperson needs to know. So if you aren't familiar with those, make sure you go ahead and look those up because you're going to want to make sure that that's like the bread and butter of this type of answer whenever they're asking you about prospecting or lead generation. You need to talk about LinkedIn Sales Navigator, HubSpot, and all those things. That's number one. Amazing that Syed was able to talk about that. And then, of course, you need to make sure you have product knowledge and business knowledge about whatever company it is that you're applying for. Here, he showed that he's recently caught up on the news and he knows a lot about their existing products. He knows it's a NoSQL database, and then he had a very clever and creative uh, pipeline generation idea of looking for job postings, right? Or for companies that would be hiring a NoSQL developer. So he's thinking outside of the box. So make sure you guys have some kind of creative solution other than just leveraging LinkedIn Sales Navigator and looking at previous, competitors and things like that, right? Because that's all basic stuff that every other candidate is going to be talking about. So it's amazing that Saeed had this out of the box idea. Everyone needs to make sure that they include that. Now, of course, also don't forget about the other kind of like what's the word like fundamental or like easy parts of your lead generation campaigns as well, like marketing and events, talking about partnering with them, making sure that you are getting a list of their qualified leads from their events. Maybe you can even provide some input on some upcoming events or conferences that Mongo should be participating at, and then making sure that you're helping them qualify leads through that, right? That's also one of the easier ways in order to generate pipeline. Okay. And then, of course, I asked this in a hypothetical question because Saeed's been in more of a CSM role. But for those of you that do have previous SDR or BDR equivalent experience, they would most likely ask this to you in a behavioral format. So they would say, walk me through how you've built pipeline at your current company, right? So in either scenario, though, the answers need to be the same, in which you need to have something creative to talk about other than just using Sales Navigator. Okay. Um, Next question. So, Saeed, obviously, as a ADR here, one of your main responsibilities is not just cold calling, but once you are able to get prospects on the phone, qualification. So, how would you qualify and identify and help us prioritize prospects for the sales team?
That's a great question. So there's one particular sales methodology that I would use. It's called MEDIC. The M as in metrics, E as in economic buyer, D as in decision maker, the other D as in decision process, I as in identifying the pain points, and finally C is champion. So when you're qualifying, the first thing you have to do is break it down. What sort of metrics are these solutions going to provide a solution for? What sort of problems are they facing? Is it a problem with the churn rate? Is it a problem with retention? Is it a problem with their database storage? Identifying those metrics that drive the decisions. The second is the economic buyer. Now, this is going to be your if you were to look at a gradient of influence and authority. So the economic buyer is somebody who has both a high degree of influence and a high degree of authority. Finally, you come with your decision maker. This is the person who is usually the economic buyer, but they are the person that designates whether or not they want to pursue this account. The decision process, when you're asking your qualifying questions, what are some of the things they're facing with their current provider? What are some of the challenges they're facing? What are some of the things of value they're looking for their new provider? What sort of solutions are they looking? What are some success criteria that would be beneficial for them to evaluate? And once you have an understanding of what the customer is facing, and understanding why they're looking to even make a switch or why they're interested in another company's products. And understanding, the why they're interested, why they're switching, and then making it a point to show why your product is particular. The I is identifying pain points. That's really, really hammering on the pain point and showing, right, whether it's a cost aspect. Is the cost the reason why you're compromising quality as opposed to, focusing on lessening costs, but potentially a lot of quality ramifications? There's some other objections, right? Willingness to pay. Is this particular solution the right point for you at this time? Once you really understand the pain point, then it becomes very, very easy for you to diagnose that pain point in particular. The last is C, champion. Is this person somebody who has enough influence and authority to champion for you internally when they're connecting with their CROs or CEOs or whoever's that executive decision maker? Do they have enough sway for you? And would this be value adding for them as well? These are some of the metrics that I look at when thinking about prospecting.
Okay, perfect. And so everyone paying attention, obviously Medic is good to know. Other companies use or BANT, BANT. Um, so both very similar acronyms. Make sure you can talk at least about one of these whenever you're talking about qualifications. And then if you can, obviously the person you'll be interviewing with is going to have a sales background. So you don't have to go exactly like definition word for word because they're probably already trained on it. So what you can also do is take it one step further and then walk them through like some of the common objections, just like Saeed did, right? Like when you're trying to make sure that this person has the authority in order to make a decision. If you're not talking to the right person, how would you actually go about navigating to find that right person and then working your way up the approval chain, right? And then so you talked about some common objections that could be around price or around functionality, and then making sure you have ways to handle those objections whenever you're on the calls with the prospects as well. So number one, make sure obviously you know what the terminology is or your methodology, and then number two, take it one step further and walk them through like for this particular company, what are some common pushbacks they would get, and then how you would actually handle those. So perfect. Do what he did. Okay. All right. So obviously, whenever you're joining a new tech company, you're going to have to learn all about our product, just like you had to do most likely in your last role. So can you tell me about a time when you had to quickly learn about a new technology and then sell it?
Sure. So at Cadillac, when I first joined, we had a robust amount of vehicles, and our internal training documentation was filled with training information from our newer models as well as our older models. And it was my responsibility to look into each and every aspect of the vehicle, understand it, and then be able to sell it to interested buyers as soon as possible.
Hmm. Go on.
And what I did though, in 30, 60, 90 days, the first 30 days I designate to fully understanding anything and everything about that particular product. In MongoDB's case, MongoDB Atlas, MongoDB Search. I know that Atlas has a lot of uh, semantic and retrieval internal aspects. What makes it easy for them to retrieve information on a unified document database? From that understanding and understanding of of the product of the company of our values, the 60 days onward, I would go about immediately understanding our customers. What are their biggest challenges that they're facing? What are some of the biggest things that they see in the future? What are some technological developments they're overseeing that they would require Mongo's help with? And finally, 90 days in, after I've shadowed sales representatives, I would also focus on immediately building relationships and positioning myself in a place to sell.
Okay, so going back to when you were at Cadillac and you had to learn about the newest cars and technologies that come with these cars, can you walk me through like a time where you had to learn about either a new technology within a car or a new type of vehicle itself, and then how you were able to actually leverage that knowledge in order to close a sale?
Sure, that's a great question. I appreciate the clarification. So at Cadillac, our 2021 Escalade was the newest Escalade at the time. One of the features that were in the Escalade were the 32-inch wide display screen. So the 32-inch wide display screen had a lot of HD luxury premium aspects, the in-house charger, the additional Wi-Fi component. When I was in conversations with customers, I know that the mindset when thinking about luxury cars is they're already looking for premium. They're already looking for a luxury car. They have the intention to buy one. At that point, the mindset shifts from, telling them about Cadillac to why Cadillac is the right fit for them. So I would focus on aspects like, drivability when taking my prospects or my customers on a test drive, showcasing the different aspects of the car that really, really would resonate with a particular driver. If somebody was on calls constantly. Let's say they're an owner operator, focusing on the fact that the car provides Wi-Fi, which allows for Wi-Fi calling, international calling. If somebody was looking for a more luxury display experience, focusing on the HD display that allows you to see and look at YouTube videos, music, Spotify, whenever you have that ability and option. Some people were looking for comfort, focusing on how the premium luxury seating of the cars were something that benefited posture, improved muscle relaxation, and prevented stress and unnecessary aches after long drives. There are customers who are particularly focused on fuel efficiency. So focusing how eco-friendly Cadillacs have been, especially new models, and how they're more fuel efficient than any other cars. So those are just some of the things that you do. And in this, what I did was identifying the particular pain points that particular individuals faced, and then creating and crafting my story in relation to those particular pain points.
Okay, got it. So let's move on to the feedback here. So for any type of interview question in general, whether it's behavioral or hypothetical, your answer should at least be 3 minutes. That's like a general guideline just to make sure that you're giving enough context, you're showing enough of your skills, you're able to talk enough about the company and the product to show that you've done your research. So make sure that your answer is longer than the initial 30 seconds, right? I had to prompt you and say, go on. So make sure that your answer is always lengthy enough. And then make sure you are focusing on the initial question, which was tell me about a time when you had to learn a new technology and then how you use that information in order to close a sale. So even with this one, you talked about how the 2021 Escalade had the brand new HD 32-inch screens inside, right? Then tell me about how you use that knowledge or this new feature in order to actually close a specific deal, not just talk about the in general, right, how you can sell the aspect of a screen. to a
Mhm.
customer, right? Walk me through that particular journey because what they're focusing on here is number one, product mastery, and then number two, application, right? So now that you've actually mastered or have all this knowledge about how our product works, how have you then leveraged that in order to specifically close a sale? So if you're now thinking to yourself, well, the new touchscreen actually didn't help me close a deal. It was more about X, Y, and Z. Then don't talk about that as the new technology. Then pick whatever it was that helped close the actual sale, right?
So in this particular, I should just adapt to star for all um, situational questions then.
Yeah. Tell me
Okay.
about a time. Give me an example of have you ever done, it should be
Yeah.
star, right? Versus
I
the one I
was
asked you
thinking,
before, which was like, which was hypothetical, which was, hey, if you were here, how would you build new pipeline, right?
mm,
In that case, the star doesn't make sense, right? Because I'm asking you if you were here, how would you do something? So you can't say, oh, well, in the past, right? The
yeah.
situation was this, right? The situation I was building pipeline. Well, I'd be like, no, I asked you, how would you build pipeline, right? So, yeah, for any behavioral, tell me about your, tell me about a time, give me an example of, have you ever done, star
Okay.
and
Perfect.
then stick with it all the way through, right? So the Escalade had the new touchscreen, and then how you used your knowledge of the new touchscreen in order to close a specific sale, right?
Right. Right. Definitely.
Okay. Oh yeah, and because this question also focuses on product mastery, the more you can talk about that feature itself, right? Like, hey, most of my colleagues just read the fact that it's 32 inches HD touchscreen. But I did a little bit more research and I actually found out that it's USB and USB-C compatible. And in 2021, we were the first luxury SUV that actually had USB-C, which was really important because the iPhone 14 came out and it had MagSafe charging or whatever, right? And so for most of my, other sales folks, they never focused on that as one of the key selling points for the Escalade. But, in Houston, the majority of our owners all had iPhones, and making sure that they could charge their phone was actually something really critical. And there was one customer who was on the fence about buying it. And then once I showed his wife the USB-C and wireless charging, she convinced her husband to, buy this over the whatever, I don't know, Cadillac, whatever the heck other car was, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because it is focused on product mastery. Again, when you can combine both of those together, that's the best way to answer this question. Okay, let's actually practice the one that you said you got in your AE interview, and then we can give some feedback on that. So tell me how you would build an account plan for one of your strategic accounts here at MongoDB.
So when thinking about building an account plan, I would go about first identifying the pain point. From the identification of pain point or the opportunity for pain, then I would think about prospecting, finding who the decision makers are, who the economic buyers are, what the decision process is, understanding more about the company, what the organization hierarchy is looking like, how are decisions communicated from one person to the other, what is the product cadence looking like, the delivery cadence looking like. Now, once I have the information about the pain point and the process of how the company operates internally, the next thing I would look at is how our product and our company can particularly provide benefit to this. Can we optimize that decision process in any way in terms of the pain points that I pointed out? Is there any space for our company to step in and make that process easier? Is there a particular economic buyer that would have more influence than another? Is there a champion that we can have internally that can help drive not only uh, success and voice for the product, but also value? Is that person somebody who can coach us to see some of the costs that this company has currently? And being transparent with the costs, can we provide a solution for them? Is it a matter of time? Are they looking for something long term? Are they planning on staying for a long time? Are they planning on staying short term? Once I have those three base aspects, then I would connect with my solutions developers, the account executives, other sales reps, and I would work on how exactly we would begin on prospecting. An account plan is essentially how you prospect, how you lead gen. So collaborating with multiple teams that I would already be collaborating with preemptively would help me build those relationships at a key point in time.
Okay. All right. Um, Let me pull this up here. This is just like a simple Google Gemini search. So for those of you who are wondering, like, what is an account plan specifically, like in the sales context? So this is when Syed was interviewing for the account executive role, because that's typically more where it comes into play. Because this is usually for like strategic or large customer accounts is when you would do an account plan. But basically, this is what it is. So these are all the components of it, right? Research analysis, which he talked about, identification of key stakeholders, which he talked about, developing a customized strategy, which is what he talked about, actionable steps and timeline, and then regular review and adjustments. So if you do get a account plan question, make sure that you're able to talk about these elements here. And then also make sure you're leveraging or talking about how the new product developments, particularly in tech sales, right? Like new features come out all the time, new products are released all the time, making sure how you're able to integrate product roadmap or product feature rollouts or patches, etc., into your account plan as well is also going to be super helpful. So that's the only thing that I think was potentially missing here. Saeed was rolling in the product development side of things. But everything else you were able to cover. Now, when you were originally asked this question in your interview, what was the answer that you gave the first time?
So I made a rookie mistake, and I when well first she told me, she's like, how would you go about building an account plan? So I actually went into detail on how I would build a client success or customer success plan. And then I was
Okay.
very transparent. I mentioned that I haven't yet built an account plan. Is there a particular distinction between a customer success plan and an account plan?
Okay. And then what did they say?
So she said that the account plan and the client success plan is different, and because an account plan is focusing on fully prospecting and building those relationships, it's different when thinking about new customers and existing customers.
hmm hmm Yep, exactly. Well, again, everyone, we have to thank Saeed for giving us all this insider information for those of you who have interviews coming up. So this is all super, super valuable. All right, let's do one more. Can you tell me or walk me through or explain your system or methodology for time management?
That's a great question. So I have a very structured approach, and it's tiered when thinking about how I manage my time, especially in relation to sales. So the first block of the day, which is your 8 to 10, that is purely dedicated to cold calls. 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, phones down, emails down. Everything is dedicating to cold calls and putting it into Salesforce, into HubSpot, or your designated CRM. Now, between 10 to 11, that is when you're responding to urgent emails. You're thinking about essential tasks that you have to do. From 11 to 12, that's my designated lunch break. And then from 12 to 2, I'm doing research on new prospects and existing prospects, research into new advancements, research into what sort of new hires are, which companies are leveraging SQL developers, which companies are not leveraging SQL developers or no SQL developers. What are some recent R&D pivots? What the chain of command is looking like? How to articulate language from a CEO as opposed to a software engineer? So those are my critical kind of understanding business components between 12 to 3. And then 3 to 5, I give the final reports to my account executive, take detailed notes, and communicate with my manager, let them know how whether or not I had any wins, successes, losses in my cold call experiences, and what I can do to improve.
I noticed you said specifically 8 to 10 for cold calls. Why 8 to 10?
8 to 10 is the perfect time that I would think for cold calling. People usually come in, and the first thing they do is get their day started. So what you want to do is right when people drink coffee, you want to get them when they're awake and they're able to pay attention to what you're saying. That way, you can also understand the problems that they have because they're a lot more awake, they're a lot more focused. And because they probably haven't drank that, first cup of coffee in the morning, they probably have a lot of on their mind already.
Okay. So you walk me through like a typical schedule, but when it comes to time management, right, which would be most important when you're overwhelmed or swamped, or maybe potentially behind on quota, how does this schedule adjust or change based on what's on your plate?
So the most important things when thinking about time management is prioritization. Prioritizing what are things you need to do, what are things you could do and should do, and then finally, what are things you can potentially postpone. So your immediate priorities as a SDR, as an ADR, as a BDR is to generate revenue for the company. That means you're going to have to cold call, cold email, and just general outreach. So that's high priority regardless. That should always be a priority. Now, some other things that are low priority that you can move down lower is non-urgent tasks that are asked of you. Yeah, any help that somebody needs. Your goal is to focus on the urgent tasks first, and then you can focus on the non-urgent tasks. Now, if you're at a point with things come up and there's a degree of kind of schedule, I guess, flexibility you need to have. As long as you focus on getting those priority items done and focus on what drives business value, then you can focus on non-priority items or potentially push off non-priority items.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Now, I think it's super cool that you had a specific schedule. I actually like how you broke it down. Do you have any science or data behind the 8 to 10, right?
I think
Time.
so there's two books in particular. Jeb Blount's Fanatical Prospecting, and then Outbound Sales No Fluff, particularly referenced that 8 to 10. Now I haven't particularly looked into any data behind this besides just like primary research. The AEs, SDR buddies that I have, they designated that early block is ideal for cold calls, cold emails. Actually, mainly cold calls. Cold emails you can do like your second priority, but a lot of times there is what they call sales call reluctance, right? You call somebody and you're afraid of interrupting their day, or you're afraid of potentially stopping. And ideally, 8 to 10 is how you can like start strong and then end the day strong as well.
Cool. I think you should include that as your explanation as to why 8 to 10, right? Like show that you've been reading books. It shows that you're super dedicated about making this career switch and you're taking this seriously. Also, there is some data and science behind it as well, right? You could say, and I've got AE friends, SDR friends. Anecdotally, they've also told me that they get a higher response rate and there's less confrontation between 8 to 10. Typically, if it's after lunch, people are either grumpy because they didn't have lunch, or they're feeling really sluggish and sleepy after they've eaten a big meal. And so they're far more confrontational. And so that's why 8 to 10 is typically best for cold calls. So I think if you could just add that, it'd be perfect. And then obviously, as everyone says, when you are doing time management, you want to prioritize the things that are most important and then deprioritize the things that are less important. So the obvious follow-up question from your interviewer will be, well, what happens if everything is currently urgent and a high priority, which sometimes does happen, right? Maybe your manager needs something from you, but you also have to call this prospect back, but you also, broke your phone. So you got to figure out how you're going to do all that. So make sure you're able to walk them through how you would manage your time in those particular tricky instances as well.
Mhm. So in terms of kind of breaking down the main responsibility that we have in terms of driving business outcomes and prospecting. And was that and then splitting that to the non-priority items. Was that a proper response to urgency? Or is there a way I could have refined that?
Um, it's a general response, but then the typical follow-up would be, well, what if multiple things are high priority, right? Like your manager needs a sales report from you by end of day. Um, One of your prospects also told you that you needed to call them back ASAP because something, went wrong, and then, there's also some other thing that's on fire that you also have to do super urgently, right? Like how do you handle those? Because like technically they could argue that all of them are urgent, right? So then you would say, okay, well, obviously I can't split myself up into three different people, and so I will have to make a decision and prioritize those that are all listed currently as urgent. So for me, number one, I think because my main goal is to identify and qualify leads. I think even my manager would be appreciative if I told them I would get it to him by end of day, but first I need to focus on doing my cold calls and emails, so I can, exceed quota this month. I believe my manager would, would be supportive of that. And then second, if one of my clients has an immediate issue, to me, I think that is priority number one. And then number two could potentially be, whatever. My teammate needs help learning something new and it's blocking their deal or something like that, like I would take care of that afterwards, because again, uh, we're focusing on the overall objective for my team, which is to generate revenue. And so I think if I can explain that to my manager, that they should be understanding with me giving them this super urgent thing by end of day instead of immediately right now, right? All right, cool. So this was a super amazing session. Everyone give Saeed a huge round of applause. We talked a lot. We covered a lot of different sales methodologies and tactics. He also gave you guys a lot of books to take a look at if you are trying to break into sales. And so please take a look at those. And then obviously Albert has other mock interviews if you guys are curious about seeing other different types of questions. And then on my YouTube channel as well, I do have a video up on how to break into sales and what are the high level sales roles, and even what the compensation packages look like. So you can take a look at both of those.
Yeah, I really love how Saeed really went into detail and analysis of how he thinks the job looks. So, for those of you who are here today, if account development and account executive type work is interesting to you, I think you got a really great masterclass.
I
Um,
appreciate you guys as well, by the way.
yeah,
I this would be my first like ADR interview, so it's really, really nice for you to help me refine my answers and just think about things that I haven't.
yeah,
Like I really like the high priority and urgency question with multiple competing priorities. That's something I didn't even think about in my prep, and that is super, super valuable. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. And you've
yeah,
clearly done a lot of research, and you're really passionate about this, and that's definitely going to be evident. So, I think they'd be lucky to have you.
awesome. Well, if anybody else who's watching would like to do a mock interview, send your resume and a job description to albert@ajobslist.com, and we can have you for one of these future weeks as we hit towards 150 when Corey will be doing a mock interview. In the meantime, we've got lots of other events coming up as well, so feel free to look at our Eventbrite page for events ranging from AI to your career to side hustles. We'll see you all very soon. Have a great and wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
And I noticed we weren't able to get to the cold call aspect. Is that because like I took too long in terms of my answers, or was there anything I could have done?
Oh no, I just